best wishes this holiday season and have a very happy new year from Sports Radio 1150 and the Zone 102.7 FM.
Good afternoon, Bryan College Station. Welcome to the Beliucci Hour lunch for the final time of this semester here at the Tap on Harvey Road. I'm your host, Ryan Brauninger. If you're looking for a place to come grab lunch on this very big day in Aggie Land, come check out the Tap's great lunch menu. 8.49, I believe, black and chicken on the special today. 8.49 burger basket comes with fries and a drink. We are powered by HomeSpark. Let Cameron Ramirez and his team tailor the best care plan possible for you and your loved ones. For more information, visit homesparkcare.com. I want to give a shout out to Cameron, who is always here and here a whole lot this fall. Thank you so much for your title sponsorship, Cameron, and your support of the show. Thank you guys so much that have listened in all semester, whether it's been on the local radio here in Bryan College Station, whether you've got us tuned in on YouTube or on the Zone 1150 Facebook page. I want to thank the guys from the Zone, Tyler and the rest of his crew for running around and helping us all semester as well. It's been a lot of fun. Been a lot of fun to cover the first season under Jimbo Fisher and come to you live twice a week from here at the Tap and eat and get this good meal in me twice a week as well. A lot of recruiting to get done today. I want to start though with just what's going on here today as the procession I guess the procession as well will pass through College Station in remembrance of George Herbert Walker Bush. In my lifetime, probably the first president that I've got a real recollection about. You know, I'm 32 years old. The first president where I had any kind of idea of what he was and what he did and was able to communicate about it, whether it be in school or with my family, was Bush 41 and just the legacy that he left. Listening to W's speech about his father yesterday really made listening to W talk about him really made me proud to be a Texan again. I'm always proud to be a Texan, but really, you could tell the relationship he had with his father and the influence that George H.W. Bush had, not only in the world, but especially on Aggie Land. Liucci, your thoughts today as we've got the George Bush Drive sign here in front of us.
I didn't even notice that. Shows you how much attention. I'm looking at this cookie right here. And happy birthday to our
I
friend.
don't know where he went.
Yeah, he left. I saw him outside. Where'd he
Oh.
go? But no, we talked about it a lot yesterday on the podcast. It went out today. Trevor, Hunter, and I just long story short, I was saying my presidents of my formative years, I guess you would say, were Reagan and Bush. So that's kind of the first time I start paying attention to what our president said and did and the way he carried himself. And, I think we all long for those days again, and I think
Very
he was very
noble. Yeah.
presidential, very kind man, but also strong. I mean, I think, you think of that things like Desert Storm and he when he had to have an iron fist, he did, but he was kind. And you just look, I just think he was a tremendous leader that did so without having to tell you what a great leader he was. And
Raised great kids.
he was a man's man. You look at his kids. I mean, first of all of the entire family and the way you said Texas, the way they represent Texas in this country, and then to have a son that actually becomes president. I mean, that's that's pretty short lived. But just you look today and this week and how revered he was across countries, across generations, across political lines. more so than maybe anything right now with the way this stuff goes, and you see how close he was with Bill Clinton and the Obamas, and then you see his son going down that same path. So it's just stuff, all the little things about him, and then you go back to his service in the military and what he went through, and it's pretty amazing that today we're celebrating a life that really almost ended, in World War II.
Yeah.
And just it's crazy the way the world works, to think the way the universe works, and if the wrong people find him in that water, or if nobody does, then the world misses out on that legacy, which will
It's
always
wild.
be remembered.
Yeah.
So it's really special, and it's really special that this is about A&M too, because of how much he and the First Lady Barbara Bush loved this place and made this, it's their final resting place for a reason. I mean, they loved everything about it, and Aggie Land loved them. So it's
one of my
it's a
coolest
cool day.
moments working for TexAgs was whenever he came to the Yale and A&M baseball series, and to see him out there and to throw the first pitch. And I've talked to some of the baseball staff members about that, and just the pride they felt in having him. And I thought one of the coolest moments was, it got real quiet in there, and somebody yelled from the lower tier of Olsen, just, welcome home, Mr. President, and he gave him a big giggle. So his love for this place is undoubted, and the love this place has for him is unquestioned as well. And I think Aggie Land is proud to be the resting place of a man such as great as that.
Today should be really unique experience for everybody. So I know everybody listening here in town probably has plans to be out there. We'll probably be sitting up top at the TexAgs offices, because it's already, by the time we get out of this show and I run home,
the streets will be.
I don't think you're going to be able to get a good viewing spot along the street there.
Yeah. So we typically don't start with we'll change the subject, get back on Texas A&M sports. This is going to be a heavy recruiting show, Liucci. We are now inside of 2 weeks till the early signing period. Yeah. So since we won't have a National Signing Day show, this will essentially serve as that. So if you've got questions about recruiting from here at the Tap, make sure you get those in for Liucci and I. We'll take them throughout the show. If not, some of you guys that aren't as familiar, we can try to get you caught up as to where A&M stands with this 2019 recruiting class. But we'll start with this. We'll actually start with a question from here at the Tap. Liucci, going into 2019, in 2019, the calendar year, which sport will finish highest in the national ranking? And I'm guessing they're talking about the big three. So you got men's basketball, baseball, and football.
Starting this spring and carrying over till next fall, or all next year?
I said in 2019.
Let's just say next sports seasons. I have just absolutely no clue. I can't answer that. We don't know. You got to see how this basketball season even goes.
It's not off to the greatest start.
It's off to a terrible start. Hopefully they can recover. The SEC's taken some bad L's already, so maybe there are some wins in there.
The Admon loss is enormous.
Admon's a killer, and meanwhile Tyler Davis, and it's where that sport goes. They should both, he and Hogue should both be playing at A&M right now. They're not. It's a shame. I hope we see those guys in the NBA one day, but if not, they could have done some special things this year that they maybe would have remembered forever, but that's not the case. And then Admon with the injury, and
so
they've played good enough to keep a couple of those losses interesting, and then they've gone down. They suffered a terrible loss to Irvine. Women's basketball just lost to Lamar last week, and obviously they were without their best player, but they need to step things up on the hardwood on both sides. Yeah. That's just the way it is, and those coaches know that. I mean, they've been there, done that many times, and recovered. So, but it's too early to predict men's basketball. Bronny, you could talk about baseball, but you guys have them going to Omaha every year.
I did not have
Rob Childress gets them in a conversation every year. I'll give him that. But baseball's always a safe bet. But man,
they got to find some pitching.
And we're talking about next year, so it's a crazy question. I'd be more interested in what's baseball going to do this year.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, the calendar year 2019, so this upcoming season. But would football take it easily if the schedule wasn't what it was next year?
Okay, let's stop and let's just make this realistic, because who the hell knows? We don't even know which guys are coming back for football next year out of some of these guys that are mulling their pro
I guess that
options.
we need to go over that
Let's
as well
just
today.
stop it and talk about this class this year right now. So you're saying if football wins their bowl, which, spoiler alert, I'm going to pick them to do, if they win the bowl, you're probably looking at a top 15 finish, maybe right around 15, 14, somewhere in there. So if that's the finish, then ask the question, okay, basketball's not going to finish there, so can baseball? That's that.
And we'll be back in the spring to talk about that as well. We got our new show dates. I believe it's January 14th. We'll be back to start that spring semester show. But you kind of hinted at it, Liucci, and we'll close the first segment with it. Your thoughts on where things stand as far as early entries? Are there any guys that you're hearing more that nobody's come out and definitively said anything? Any guys you're hearing are leaning that way, or is there any new news there?
I don't think there's new news, but I think you got with the same five guys we talk about that were and are considering it. I think McCoy, Dodson, Matabike, Sternberger, and Williams. Obviously, that's a big difference in your team next year.
It means Braden Mann's coming back.
The two, and I haven't even confirmed that. I would assume the two I'm most watching, probably the closest, would be Jason Travion. And I think Travion's probably got the most interesting decision to make because of the running back shelf life and hey, how much could I really help myself? I'm just about to be a 1,600-yard rusher. What more could I do? Or is my stock as high as it's going to be? And you have only so much tread on the tires.
Mm-hmm.
And
another year in the SEC is going to take some tread off of that.
Yeah,
and he knows
35 carries against LSU, and he was glad to get them. Don't get me wrong. But then again, I talked to Scout this past weekend that told me, he's like, every one of those guys should come back and they'd be making a mistake if they left early. That's to each his own. You don't know Travion Williams' family situation or what he needs right now. So to say that, I think, is a little – but what he was really trying to say was just from an X's and O's, how much you can help yourself by coming back, because none of them – it wouldn't surprise me if not a single one went in the first two rounds, and maybe not even the first three. And there's a legit chance that none of those guys we mentioned would go in the first 3 rounds. Now, McCoy could, Jace could, maybe a Dotson or Matabike could, but that's not even guaranteed. None of them are going to get first, second round grades. I can say that with supreme confidence, that I don't think a single one of them will get a grade saying you're going to go in the first or second round. And what the NFL calls that after second round is a stay in school grade. That's what they've changed that to.
Real quick before the break, if Travion or Jace or however many of these guys declare for the NFL draft, do you think they'll play in the bowl game?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I
didn't know
idea.
If you get any indication that way,
No.
one way or the other. On the other side of the break,
I really hope they would, because winning a bowl game is pretty important for
and
this
Christian
program.
Kirk set an example last year.
Christian Kirk set a tremendous example, and Myles Garrett did as well.
Yeah.
Don't forget, Myles Garrett was the number one freaking pick. Von Miller did the same thing. Of course, that was before it was really in vogue. But I'd like to see them, because that game means a lot to the program. And also, in the case of those two guys, Travion Williams could leave here as the single-season all-time Texas A&M rushing leader. What an amazing feat that would be.
Yeah. On the other side of the break, we'll jump right into this recruiting talk. You're listening to you're listening to Beliucci Hour, the final one of this semester. We're presented by HomeSpark.
They deserve while helping them age with dignity and prolonging their independence. With HomeSpark, we provide companionship, transportation, meal preparation, light household duties, and more of what you think is important. We're thankful for the faith Aggieland has placed in HomeSpark, making us the most trusted and valued name in home care. For more personalized care we offer, go to homesparkcare.com. HomeSpark, we care for people.
For nearly 2 decades, TexAgs has been the #1 Aggie community online. And thanks to that community, we've been able to grow into so much more. TexAgs is now an industry-leading media company that covers Aggie football, basketball, baseball, and recruiting like nobody else. Our staff of over 30 consistently delivers in-depth analysis, X's and O's breakdowns, award-winning video content, and the most reliable inside information you can find. So if you love the Ags, come check us out at TexAgs.com and become a premium subscriber. TexAgs.com/subscribe.
Here's Brad Beard of Intercon.
When we started Intercon in early 1991, we were well aware that we would be competing with some companies that use unscrupulous techniques to make a quick sale, such as bait and switch, or 40% off if you commit today, or misleading incomplete quotes. Intercon's practice is to be completely honest and encourage prospective customers to talk to our former customers. We've encouraged customers to get multiple quotes. We are confident and proud of our value proposition for windows, glass, and solar screens. We never want anyone to rush into a decision they will regret in the future. Just remember, warranties are only as good as the people who provide them and are servicing the area when situations arise. This is our home and only marketplace, and we will protect our home turf. You've probably heard the saying, the buck stopped here, and that is with me, Brad Beard, president and co-owner of Intercon LLC.
Whether you have new construction or an existing home, let the fine folks from Intercon help your home energy efficiency year-round. Call Brad Beard of Intercon today at 823-3639. That's 823-3639.
As the year ends, it's time to reflect on all of our blessings. Hi, I'm Gabriel Garcia, and at Tradition Mobile One Oil and Lube, we're grateful for our relationships with our customers. And there's no better time than the holidays to express our appreciation for your patronage. So thank you for the opportunity to serve you. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from everyone at Tradition Mobile One Oil and Lube.
Folks are always looking for a place to meet friends, grab some food, relax, and unwind with a cold beer, mixed drink, or glass of Boots Sweet Tea. The Tap on Harvey Road has been the place to do just that for nearly 30 years. A casual atmosphere and tasty food keeps people coming back for more. Our burgers, salads, chicken tenders, nachos, and more are sure to satisfy whatever craving you have. And being an SEC country, the Tap is a great place to meet before, during, or after the game. See you at the Tap on Harvey Road in College Station.
Start each day with everything and anything you need to know about the Zone. Sign up for our daily email newsletter at zone1150.com. Get the day's lineup for TexAgs Radio, the Louis Beliucci Show, and Chip Howard. Read up on the top A&M athletic stories. Register, enter, and be reminded about all the Zone events, contests, or promotions. Get the Zone All Access Update. All Access Update. All Access Update. Email to you Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Sign up now. Sign up now at zone1150.com. Sign up now.
Ron Brauninger, Beliucci with you from here at the Tap on Harvey Road. Beliucci Hour lunch powered by Home Spark.
Okay, what happened?
December
Why
19th.
Stop talking.
No, I'm preparing everybody for our big recruiting chat. Booch. Let the host do the thing. And
do your
you're
thing.
the star.
You're
the
killing
star.
it.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. So we get the 2019 recruiting class, A&M, by most national service, ranked in the top 5. With 24, I believe they've had some fluctuation in the class recently. Had a decommitment from an offensive lineman in Florida, but they also added Jalen Weidemeyer, who we spoke about on Tuesday, tight end from Dickinson. I think it's time, if they're going to end up with a top 5 class, Luch, with the way they closed, the staff closed on last cycle, and then this class they're putting together this cycle, I think it's going to be, you're going to be hard-pressed not to call them an elite recruiting staff in the country, and I think that means they're a top 5 recruiting class. I mean, recruiting staff in the country. Would you argue that?
No, I wouldn't. And I don't even need to go through the rest of them because whether they're 1, 3, 5, or 7, I mean, they're right up there. Whatever is the best grouping, whether that's, it would take a lot of research and a lot of just basement troll types to go and study that stuff. But I could just keep it real simple and say wherever the cutoff is for the elite staffs in college football, A&M is above that cut line.
Absolutely.
Whether it's 4, 6, 7, wherever that is, A&M is one of the elites. They're one of the haves. They're not one of the have-nots. Jimbo Fisher has always been one of the haves. As a head coach, he was doing it as an assistant coach at LSU, where he was getting Nick Saban not good but great, elite, next-level players there, and it carried over to Florida State, where he did it there. And then when he took over as a head coach, I think only once in 8 years was his class ranked below 6, and it was a smaller class that finished like 12th. But so in 7 of 8 years, he finished in the top 6, and it looks like he'll do it again this season as well, especially if they close with a couple of these additions. It looks like they will.
You know, you're going head-to-head, and I talked about this on TexAgs Radio and in our little recruiting show that Jason Howell and I did. You're going head-to-head with Bama now. Like,
Yeah.
This is your primary recruiting rival. No longer are you really stealing guys from Oklahoma State, which was so prevalent under the last staff, or fighting with TCU or Arkansas, and the odd occasion Texas, LSU, Bama. Now, Texas, LSU, Bama are your prime, and really Bama has been. And they're still trying to come in. They're going to get A&M commit Jeffrey Carter in on a visit this weekend.
Yeah,
you're going to have to weather
probably
that.
The biggest thing to follow this weekend if you're an A&M recruiting fan.
You know, we're hearing great things out of the Carter camp going into that weekend, but weird stuff happens in Tuscaloosa. You saw it last with A&M commit Christian Harris, who flipped his commitment to Alabama.
I'm not a fan of the way they recruit. I'll put it that way.
Yeah,
We'll leave
they
it at
blanket offers all over the country. I
I'm
think
not
they
a
offer
fan
more
of
anybody.
anything that Alabama does on the recruiting front, but that's the battle you fight. You go fight them and you win. A&M's winning their fair share, that's for sure. Vernon Jackson,
They've won
Bobby
more than
Brown,
they've lost against Bama.
Leon O'Neal. This year they would certainly love to have DeMarvin Leal, Jeffrey Carter. That much is obvious. They got Christian Harris. They got Jalen Waddle. You've got there are plenty that they would have taken. I don't know. Wademeyer probably couldn't have chosen Alabama this week, but he could have this summer. Baylor Cup was a guy that they would have taken in a heartbeat. Damani Richardson is a guy they
saying
tried.
that Nick Saban was at Seven Lakes today or this week.
Weibu, they're going. Yeah, they continue to pursue him as well. Damani Richardson is a guy they tried to convince to kind of open things up and get back there and give them a harder look. So Eric Young, there's plenty of them in this class. Kenyon Green could have gone to Alabama with the snap of his fingers. So you are recruiting at that level. You're trying to win championships in the SEC. You have to. So they have to go toe-to-toe with LSU and Alabama, and eventually they'll do the same with Georgia as they kind of continue to expand their reach and their footprint from here at Texas A&M. But it's the big leagues, and you're right. They're not falling back and going after these guys that, like to me, I don't know. I don't want to pick an example and have him go back on him because, like a guy like Andrew Coker is a good player. He's a good prospect at Katy Taylor, but A&M offered him, and then they kind of backed away, and he went to TCU. And this is one of those instances where in the past you'd see A&M go back on a guy like that late, whether they get him or not, and try to flip him. You're not seeing that in this class. Number one, because they've got 3 commits already.
20,
they're not going back and reaching on guys that they've already determined for one reason or another either weren't good enough for this particular class and this particular need or just in general, and you're not seeing them have to go back. There's really one spot out of the entire class that they're kind of sent to scrambling on, and it's for this final – and that doesn't mean they're not going to get a really good player, but it's for this final linebacker spot because Christian Harris defected, because there weren't enough good ones in the state this year. Notice they're not even trying to go back on David Gabenda, who they backed off of long before he committed to Texas. That's not even a thought in their mind to go back down that road. There's just and the reason I pick him is not because he's committed to Texas, but because he's one of the more highly regarded in the state. It's a weak year. It's a terrible year in state. So they're going out nationally and trying to find one more because they need. So really of an entire class, that's actually one spot in what will be maybe a 26-man haul.
I think we'll get north of that maybe.
Yeah, they might. But where Texas A&M is kind of going out and saying, all right, we got to go and get one more guy at this position, and we got to go find one. And that's pretty amazing.
And
it's especially amazing when you think of when A&M was signing top 8 to 15 classes under Kevin Sumlin. Even doing that, you're scrambling like that 4, 5, 6 times a year down the stretch.
Yeah, on the other side of the break, I want to get Liucci's thoughts on really, the high-end guys in this class and who could come in and make an immediate impact. Get his breakdown on that. We got a lot of questions from here at the tap. Then we'll also look at some underrated guys that are, maybe not ready when they come in, but 2 or 3 years down the road, maybe like a Tyree Johnson, who came on strong this year as a redshirt freshman, or Courtney Davis. You're looking at that kind of future with those guys. You listen to Beliucci Hour Lunch, powered by HomeSpark. HomeSpark, top-class care from top-class people, from right here in Bryan College Station, and has become the premier home help service agency in the Brazos Valley. Texas A&M former student Cameron Ramirez and his team understand that bringing a caregiver into your home can be a big decision, and because of that, the HomeSpark model provides personal consultation and assessments in order to build the most comprehensive plan possible for your loved ones. Hiring a caregiver requires a tremendous amount of trust, and bringing in an outsider to help a family member in need isn't easy. That feeling of not knowing what's going on at all times with your loved ones and those closest to you can be strenuous. The folks at HomeSpark understand this, and their goal is to bring much-needed peace of mind to all parties involved. Taking care of seniors is their passion, and they're committed to providing the best care possible for your loved ones as they age. HomeSpark is proud to give back to the communities, proud to give back to those that have done so much for their communities, their families, their state, and their country. We all stand on the shoulders of those who come before us, and HomeSpark promises to honor the contributions of the seniors in the communities they serve, earning your trust by fulfilling that promise and providing independence for your loved ones. For more information, visit their website at homesparkcare.com, where they've got testimonials from folks who have put their trust in HomeSpark. Or you can call them at 979-260-0320 and let Cameron and his crew tailor the best plan possible for your situation. The most trusted name in senior care assistance in the Brazos Valley, HomeSpark. We care for people.
Gage Gandy Bail Bonds. We put your feet back on the streets. Now serving Grimes County. Fast professional service with the best rates in town. Gage Gandy Bail Bonds. Open 24/7. Call 979-821-BOND. That's 979-821-BOND. Gage Gandy Bail Bonds is Aggie owned and operated, class of 95. Serving the Brazos Valley for over 20 years and now serving Grimes County. Gage Gandy Bail Bonds is located behind the Brazos Courthouse, 116 North Washington Avenue in Bryan. Call 979-821-BOND or visit GageGandyBailBonds.com. We put your feet back on the streets.
Hi, this is Bobby Jenkins with ABC Home and Commercial Services. This is the time of year when rodents are flourishing. That means rats, raccoons, and mice are seeking shelter inside your home. No matter what kind of rodents you have, ABC can create a plan to get rid of them. Close up the openings where they come in and catch any that may be in your home. Plus, all ABC specialists undergo background screening so you can feel comfortable with our team on your property. ABC Home and Commercial Services, specialists for your environment.
For courteous service, just call ABC Home and Commercial Services.
You can hear your favorite Aggie teams on the zone.
Now outside the 5 for this two-point conversion in the 7th OT, tied at 72. The snap to Kellen. Kellen rolls to his right. Kellen stops, fires back over the middle. Tied the conversion. Kendrick Rogers and the Aggies win 74-72 in 7 OTs. Here's your rivalry.
Aggie football, basketball, and baseball all play on the zone.
Welcome back. Beliucci Hour Lunch, powered by HomeSpark. HomeSpark allows seniors to maintain their independence while aging in the place they call home. Ryan Brauninger, Billy Liucci with you from here at the Tap on Harvey Road, the recruiting edition of the Beliucci Hour Lunch. Luch, let's get into this class a little bit. Basically, we got a ton of questions from here at the Tap, too, that we're going to have to either get to in this segment or just rifle through in that final segment. But guys in this class that either at positions where A&M's thin or they're just so good, they're going to come in your mind and make a real push to play next year and maybe even, start, not the opener, but, at some point during the year they'll be in that rotation, maybe like what Bobby Brown was.
Yeah, let's keep it more like that, because Bobby maybe and I'm not positive. I think he started maybe a couple games, but really
Bobby, Jay Sean,
just big factors.
Yeah.
Bobby and Jay Sean and whatever. Jay Sean started it on special, as a return specialist and played a big role in the back. So guys like that, impact newcomers per se. Here's my thing: take your pick in the secondary. It's not all four of the guys currently committed aren't gonna be that, but any of the four can be, and it will be more than one. At least a couple of those four, and it wouldn't surprise me if three of them are going to play pretty prominent roles. I would be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked, but I would be surprised if one of the four.
There's only three commits.
Okay, no, there's four.
Eric Young, Damani, Brian.
Jeffrey Carter.
Oh, yeah. I believe we're listed as athletes.
Okay. So, of those four, I would be actually kind of surprised if one of the four wasn't starting as a true freshman.
I love Scooby in that Deshaun Capers-Smith role.
Well, and that's what else I was going to say. You could see one full-time, one starter, one package starter out of that as well. So, again, I think a lot of those guys, take your pick. Linebacker's tougher to say. I would have thought Christian Harris could have made a real push. Andre White had a hell of a senior year, and physically he brings it. But you'd have to push out, a couple of veterans in Hines and Buddy Johnson. But outside of that, there's not much. So there's
some of those dudes will play, and they're going to sign another one. I would say two of the four that are coming in at linebacker are going to play.
Probably, but remember they really only played. Really, Elcom, and it's rare, but he made it through the season really essentially playing three linebackers.
Oh, yeah, and I could, but I'm saying like a Terrian Lee or somebody like that's on special teams or whoever.
But I'm talking about like the Bobby Brown, Corbin. Isn't that the question?
Yeah, I should have clarified. I
freshmen-
meant they were going to play a lot on, like they're going to be running down on kickoffs and stuff like that.
Yeah, but
Right, I know what you're saying.
So is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, no, we're talking about. I should have clarified when I said that. They're going to play on special teams.
Because otherwise I'll answer that too. I'm just saying, trying to be right within within the Brauninger parameters of this thing, the game we're playing. So, defensive line wise, no brainer, 100%. DeMarvin Leal is going to be an instant impact. I can't wait to see a couple of years, not a couple, like 2020, Leal and Bobby Brown up front. And that's what it can all be built around. And you might have Leal, Bobby Brown, and senior Jaden Peavy. I don't think Justin Matabike will go to his senior year. I think he's too good. But Peavy as a senior, Diallo in year 3, and then but Leal and Brown kind of anchoring that group. And here's the thing, that doesn't even count Tyree Johnson, Tyree Wilson, Darius Jones, Max Wright,
Josh Ellis, and Jeremiah Martin.
Jeremiah Martin was one I was thinking of, and quite possibly someone like a Derek Hunter, David Ogwebu. He's another one now that I would almost put if he signs with A&M. I think he makes an impact as a pass rusher very quickly. I think he's got that kind of twitch and that kind of talent out there, and just that natural lean and bend and all those things that you can coach, but some guys have it at a different level and some don't. So I think a lot of that defensive class will have an impact, but no more so than DeMarvin Leal, and then somebody in that secondary I think works their way into the starting lineup. Offensively, it begins with Kenyon Green, and I think
Now he's going to have to. I mean, if McCoy comes back, there's an open guard spot, but you've got a guy that everybody seems to be really high on in Luke Matthews, and all the other starters are returning. So Kenyon's going to have to come in and be pretty stinking good to play, and he is. There's no doubt that Kenyon Green is the most college-ready offensive lineman in the state of Texas, no matter what position you want to say. Left tackle to right tackle, any position in between, Kenyon Green would be the best in the state at every position.
Yeah. I just have a feeling that guy, his talent, and he finds a way to work his way in. Now, I know there's one spot. There might be two. I hope there's not. I hope McCoy returns. I think he could really help this line be a really good one next year if he comes back. Then you'd return 4 starters. You'd have a senior and 3 juniors starting. I mean, that not a lot of teams have that luxury, and you could have that type of veteran O-line. Hell, who knows? You could have another veteran in like a McCollum or a Prater manning that 5th spot and have an all upperclassman O-line, or like you said, Luke Matthews. There's Kenyon Green, and there's a few other options as well in those younger classes. But that McCoy coming back does that. If he doesn't, then I really think Kenyon Green will start somewhere because you'd be replacing 2.
Baylor Cup,
Jalen Weidemeyer. That'll depend on Jace, whether it's 1 or 2 of those guys playing prominent roles. I think neither one of them red shirts. Cup,
his senior tape. It's almost a danger to society out there where he plays at Brock. The kids that he's having to play against, just small school. It's not his fault. But these kids need to be having like 2 helmets on and 2 sets of shoulder pads.
It's like when there's that weight limit when you're little kids.
It's like if Dalton was running through Gabe every day.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it looks like.
I'm just telling you, both those guys can block their asses off. And that's going to be special to watch. And by the way, so can Glenn Beal. So you want to talk about having guys out on the perimeter. That's one area where I think the team will be improved next year, just with those 3 guys blocking out there. Because they're all so good at it, and they're all so willing, and they've got that mean streak about them, and that pop and physicality to them. Isaiah Spiller, again, if Travion Williams were to move to the NFL, that would open up a lane for Jashawn Corbin, who I think could be really special. And then after that, you go, well, where is it coming from? Is Vernon Jackson that guy? Is Cordarian Richardson, although I think he might step into that fullback role. Isaiah Spiller is really talented. You've watched him a lot.
He's steady Eddie, man.
Yeah.
He reminds me, he's a different style of runner than Travion, but he will do what Travion does in terms of
everything,
catching, blocking, just whatever the team needs him to do. He's so steady, very smart kid. He was actually
good size kid too.
And he was actually one that I'd put on my list of maybe not next year, but down the road. I think Isaiah Spiller has a good career here at A&M.
Yeah.
I think he is a really solid back for the Aggies that, the fan base can trust and the coaching staff can trust.
It could be next year because if Williams were to go, you could see Isaiah, it could be Corbin and Isaiah sitting atop that depth chart fairly quickly. And then at receiver, I love Dalen Wright. I think Dalen Wright is, and it's a crowded field over there, especially with the way Davis and Rogers ended the season. Obviously, they'll have to prove more consistency. Although I'll say Courtney Davis, he was kind of the breakout performer for A&M this year. If you think about it, 100-yard game against LSU, 100-yard game against South Carolina, touchdown against Kentucky, touchdown against Clemson, a couple of huge plays there, one of them that he got robbed on, touchdown against Mississippi State right before that. I mean, he was big in big games, and, when you go back and look, maybe he wasn't that consistent 80 to 120-yard producer. Not many are, but he consistently came up big in big games and big moments, and it was really, he didn't have a career catch before the season, but Dalen Wright, to me, Bronny, he's physically there. I mean, he's as physically there as most anyone in the country, honestly. He can run. We've watched him catch. I just love the way he attacks the football and snatches that thing out of the air, and then he's just between he and he if your boy's healthy, Caleb Chapman coming off the knee, those are two guys that are real physical matchup problems on the outside.
Catch radius
And
insane,
Rodgers
yeah.
is too because of his length. But those guys have a chance to be because of not only their length but also their physicality and just sheer, body size as well. They're just going to be tough to fight around for the football.
One of the things that I'm looking at this class, and here are some of my names that I'm really looking forward to seeing this time next year, where they're at in their development, and even 6 months after that, going into their second spring maybe at A&M. Zach Calzada, who I think the mental makeup is through the roof and off the charts, and he's physically arm talent is as high as anybody.
Remember early in the year when everyone was complaining, like, oh, he's having a bad senior year. Well, those people get real quiet now when the final product's put together.
Josh Ellison, who had more tackles for a defensive tackle than anybody I've ever covered.
Okay.
And then Layden Robinson, who just absolutely mauled people at Manville his senior season. And everybody in South Houston will tell you that's the second best offensive lineman in the state behind Kenyon Green. Now, they're biased because they see him all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But that kid out of Manville had a phenomenal senior season.
Yeah, he did.
And will factor in some point early on in the center of that offensive line, whether it's center or at guard, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you on him especially. He maybe more so than any. My sleeper that I don't think enough people talk about is on defense. It's probably Braden Mowry.
Yeah.
Because just it was early commitment. He never waffled or wavered, and he was
from a program that you've had no issue getting kids out of.
And he was top 25 prospect by most people's counts. We had him top 20, but not a top 5 or 10. Those guys that get the most attention. And then my one on offense, I was really impressed when we watched him, and he just having the lineage that he has. I like Cam Brown a lot.
Jason Howell will swear that when the game's on the line, Cam Brown makes the biggest plays. That's when he shines.
I think Cam Brown is really – and he's not – it's not like he's lowly rated.
No.
But I think he's not talked about a lot. I think he can be a really good wide receiver at Texas A&M. And he's not he's kind of like what you're talking about Isaiah Spiller. Just kind of has a chance to be good at everything. He can make plays down the field.
I think he can be Malcolm Kennedy.
That's a good comparison. That's a good comparison.
Steady Eddie, can make plays.
But good. Steady. For people, I know what you're saying, but I think sometimes people don't get excited by steady. Steady is good.
Yeah.
Jamon Osmond to me is steady.
Yep.
Jamon Osmond's a good receiver for A&M, and they missed him when he was hurt. And I know he didn't have the game that those guys had against LSU, but Jamon Osmond can go out every week, and he might do this his last couple years at A&M, go out every week and catch you 5 for 55, and do it week after week after week, and that's really good. And I think Cam Brown is going to be a good player no matter what. And I just think he's got some of those intangibles that could make him a pretty special talent for the Aggies.
Yep. On the other side of the break, we'll close the show with your questions from here at the Tap. Final segment of the final show of the semester. Beliucci Hour Lunch, powered by HomeSpark. Subject matter.
Tis the gift-giving season. If you're tired of socks and underwear, buy yourself something you want from Brew Supply Haas, like a big green egg grill, or start a new hobby like brewing your own beer. Brew Supply Haas is your only locally owned one-stop home brewing store with a complete selection of fresh ingredients and all the home brewing equipment and professional knowledge you'll need. This year, buy yourself what you want from Brew Supply Haus, your one-stop shop for brewing, grilling, and chilling. Click on brewsupplyhaus.com.
those dudes were on the tour bus last night with Parker McCollum. I texted Max Wright. I said, "How'd y'all pull that off?" He goes, "He's like my homeboy." So,
Football, basketball, baseball, and recruiting like nobody else. Our staff of over 30 consistently delivers in-depth analysis, excellent odds breakdowns, award-winning video content, and the most reliable inside information you can find. So if you love the Ags, come check us out at TexAgs.com. Become a premium subscriber. TexAgs.com/subscribe.
You need help if you've been charged with a crime. The justice system is daunting. You need an experienced defense lawyer to obtain the best results for you. Steve Costidis, attorney at law, has been helping people fight criminal charges for over 20 years. Call Steve Costidis now to schedule your free consultation. 823-9111. Qualified people are ready to take your call. Let Steve Costidis put his experience to work for you. 823-9111. Visit CostidisLaw.com today and get the help that you need.
We are Symetria Recovery.
The one outpatient treatment network that focuses on one thing.
Crushing opioid addiction.
With one treatment team.
Counselors, doctors, nurses, psychiatrists.
One proven method, the Symetria method.
With a success rate 4 times the industry average.
Call 844-847-6999.
That's 844-847-6999.
Hey, opioid addiction, we've got your number.
It's getting cold here in Aggie land, and that means fighting Texas Aggie women's basketball. Coach Gary Blair and the ladies are looking for their 14th straight trip to the NCAA tournament, and you can follow along from start to finish on Sports Radio 1150 and the Zone 102.7 FM. From one of the toughest non-conference slates in the country to the bonded SEC, don't miss 1 second of the action, the shots, the blocks, the wins. Listen to Fighting Texas Aggie women's basketball this season on Sports Radio 1150 and the Zone 102.7 FM.
song rocks. Ryan Brauninger, Beliucci with you. Beliucci Hour lunch, powered by Homespark, the final segment of the semester. We'll be back on January the 14th to do, I guess, will be a lot of basketball, baseball, and then leading up to signing day as well. And then we'll roll right through, I believe, spring football will be a big topic of conversation. Luch, got 6 minutes. Got a lot of questions. We need to rifle through these pretty quick. And somebody in the crowd got their feelings hurt because we didn't read theirs the last couple times. So I'm going to get to all of them.
Get to it. Get on it.
N'Kobe Dean, any chance? 5-star linebacker out of
I would say no,
Mississippi.
minimal. Not enough to ask the question again unless you hear otherwise from us or you start hearing some buzz, but it doesn't sound like. Eventually they're going to break through on one of those national top 5 linebackers, but it's tough sledding. You got to just keep hammering away. I thought they had one in Christian Harris, and then lost him. Bama probably got to his dad on that one, and that thing just kind of changed course suddenly.
Who is the biggest surprise recruit for A&M out of the 2017 and 2018 classes? So guys that have been productive that you were kind of slept on in recruiting.
That's a good question. I'm trying to think because I'm thinking of the current team now.
Eric McCoy was a 2016.
Yeah,
but
I'm trying to think
really
17 and 18. We liked maybe Carson Green.
Yeah.
Although we like
and
it's
Moore.
easy to like these guys when you start hearing about them and stuff. But in terms of rankings and stuff, and particularly Carson, who's committed to. No, we liked Peavy. I mean, Carson Green was committed to SMU. So he was kind of way off the radar there. I liked Hawker even when I first saw him. At the time, he was like a Kansas commit. I would say probably those guys. Kendrick Rogers wasn't rated very high, but we all knew that kind of talent that he had. Defensively, last couple of seasons,
Devion Renfro.
Yeah. He hasn't been spectacular, but he's been good at times.
He committed A&M.
And he's a 2-year starter now, essentially. So I'd say Renfro would be that guy. And the biggest one, and he wasn't 16 or 17, but the biggest one on the roster would have to be Landis Durham, who led the SEC in sacks and has had something in the neighborhood of 18 the last 2 years playing SEC football. So probably none bigger than him.
What information does the staff rely on to evaluate a potential recruit? Who on the staff is responsible for this information?
I mean, they rely on a lot of stuff. Jimbo Fisher and his staff, more so than most, watch their own film and like to really see these guys in person and stuff like that. Austin Thomas, it plays just an integral role in orchestrating and organizing that whole thing, and he's almost like, I say almost, I don't even know what his exact title is, but it could very well be
GM.
You could put a GM title on him. So it kind of starts with Fisher and Austin and goes from there. But and there's a large team, a recruiting team that that work behind the scenes and don't get a whole lot of credit, but are a part of the operation as well.
And the GAs too. GAs watch a ton of film, so do the quality control guys. Do the Aggies have any linebacker? Well, let's just ask it this way: who do you think the Aggies land at linebacker? Is there a name that you think that they? It's really up in the air on about 5 names right now.
There's my question to you, recruiting guy, because what I was thinking about yesterday, do you think they sign one more linebacker in 2 weeks, or do you think they add one in February?
Can you get back to me after the official visits are done, like before the?
Well, that's going to be
next
2 days
week.
Before.
What I'm saying is, do they get another guy in next week, which they can, and then can they close on that kid?
Yeah.
I think it's more likely that you sign the final one in February.
I do too. That's why I thought that, but I figured you'd have a little bit better feel for that one right now. But that would be my guess.
I work with a diehard Bama fan. After the recent thievery, should I ever talk to him again? You really shouldn't talk to Bama fans to begin with. It's only going to lower your IQ. It's like talking to an LSU fan.
There you go. But he's a co-worker, so what does that say about where he works?
Well, I don't know. Maybe
you should be the boss. With a bunch of low IQ people? Or
maybe he should be the boss.
Then again, I do, so what am I talking about?
What are the Aggies' final question here? What are the Aggies' 3 keys to victory against NC State? Got about less than a minute.
3 keys? Good Lord.
Don't turn it over.
Have your guys actually play, and don't lose guys to the draft that decide they're not going to play. That's 2 big ifs there. One for them to go, the other. I think exploit that secondary. Owen's got the article talking about their issues on the back end. I think that's another one. Exploit that secondary and take advantage of what's there. Those receivers need to have another, the receivers in Kellen need to have another big outing. And then I think third, even though they've got a projected first-rounder at quarterback, is stop the run. Put him in positions where he has to throw it, and then it'll allow Elko to do some things in coverage to kind of cover up any type of mismatches, and also that's where you can get pressure. People forget Texas A&M sacked Joe Burrow, 6 times? Half dozen times, and they probably, because Burrow was so mobile, they might have missed 4 others. They could have had double-digit sacks in that game had Burrow not been so damn mobile. Texas A&M got off to a really slow start and finished 14th nationally in sacks this year. So if they can win against the run, they can put a lot of pressure, and I don't care if you're a first-rounder or a top-5 pick.
Good stuff this fall, Liucci. We'll see you guys back here in January. Thank you guys so
Talk
much for hanging
recruiting.
out. Beliucci Hour Lunch powered by Homestar. Louis Bellina's on the other side.